Hey guys, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me in this today. I just wanted to do a quick video about what I think is a really helpful translation that I use for my Bible studies, for my understanding of the scriptures, because it's so cool. It has so many different things, so many resources, so much context behind it. And one of my favorite things is that it uses the Septuagint translation as its base to translate from the original Greek language to English, to a modern readable English that's faithful to a Greek translation. So I just want to show you what it is, what it looks like, and you know, come on here, let me put that away. But it's the 2001 translation, and you can look it up on 2001translation.org. This is its main page, so you can kind of see what it is. And basically, it tells you right there. It's based on manuscripts older than those used by other translations, and there are some very interesting differences. And what does it mean by these older translations? I'm not going to make this a full length video, but it's basically that the Masoretic Text, which is the ancient translation that is used for your Old Testament right now in your typical King James, ESV, NIV, um, they're all using the uh, Masoretic text as the base for that English translation. The thing is, the Masoretic text was written around the year 1000 AD, give or take, where the Septuagint was actually a Greek translation done around the year 200, 300 or so BC. And that tells you right there. And then that was a Greek translation of the original either the proto Hebrew, which was the original Hebrew document, or some uh, other Aramaic translation of that Hebrew document. Because remember, through history, we have the ancient Hebrews that spoke that Paleo Hebrew or Phoenician language, and eventually they get captured by Babylon. They eventually all speak Aramaic, and then after some time, they eventually speak Greek again for a long period of time, and then eventually the Masoretic comes through from basically Jesus' time until the year 1000. There's a development of this new Hebrew language which tries to replicate the old language, but it's a mixture of Aramaic and I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but you can look into that to find out some more. So you have that general idea of the where this translation comes from, and it reads different because there's different changes in the Septuagint and the Masoretic text. Let's give an example Jesus quotes from. You'll notice that he quotes an Old Testament scripture and you read it and you're like, okay, this is how he says it. And then you go to the Old Testament and you find that the Old Testament doesn't read quite the same. And you wonder why is that? Sometimes you think it's just translation errors, and it is, but this comes back to the root of it. The Masoretic text had a lot of, or let's say had some texts that were deliberately changed over time and changed in its interpretations, and they were essentially things that denied the deity of Christ and denied what early Christians who used the Septuagint, which Jesus used the Septuagint, when those early Christians were using the Septuagint to make that point, they eventually came to make their own translations of that early Hebrew, early Messianic Hebrew, I think it is. But basically, there's that conflict between the what the Jews saw as their scripture tradition and then what the Christians saw as their scripture tradition. So enough of that. Let me not keep rambling. So as you see, it's normal. It has the typical books all the way from Genesis to Malachi. It has, as you see, some interesting things like you see there's Ezra Alpha, Ezra Beta. You can find out more of what that necessarily means when you click on it. The same thing with Daniel Old Greek, which is super interesting, and I'm reading right now. And then there's the Theodotian Daniel, which again you can look into that and see the differences between the two textual traditions. Then we have the typical Gospels, the letters, and all that. Let me give you an example. Let's jump into Genesis. So, and it's really cool because I mean, look at how easy the layout is. Look how pretty it is. And I'm not sponsored by them. I just think it's a really good website. To be honest, it's one of the many tools that I use, but this one's just been really cool and really helpful to just really learn more context and focus on reading it through the lens of the Septuagint, from how Jesus and that Greek audience read it. So we start out at Genesis, and it gives us a little summary. Genesis is a history book. It was compiled by Moses, probably with the help of secretaries. It covers a period from the beginning of creation of our planet until the death of Joseph. They translated from the Greek Septuagint manuscripts dating from the 300s AD. That makes our sources about 600 years earlier than the traditional Hebrew text used by other Bibles. So I guess they're using the ones from 300 AD, but still, I mean, if we're taking it from 300 years after Christ versus about 1,000 years after Christ, then we start to get different traditions, of course. And then you can do the learn why. Let's go ahead and click on that so you can kind of see. And why the Greek Septuagint? And it's going to give you a whole thing. The early church preferred to use the Greek Septuagint version of the Old Testament, known as the LXX, over more recent translations from Hebrew. And it gives you a whole thing about it, and it gives you more links and more discussions, and it's so detailed, and they do a great job. They really do. So you can just dive into that. It gives you an idea of how things work. In their translation, you're going to see things grayed out. Let me just jump into it. And it gives you fantastic notes so you can understand the context more. And it gives you cool things like the wording of 1:1 through 2:3 suggests to us that it was originally written as a poem or a song, although not in the later Hebrew poetic style that we see in later in the Bible, but in a different and more ancient form. So if you don't know, that whole 1 to 2 3 is often considered one separate creation story, or one creation poem, versus 2 3 on forward is a different creation narrative. So we have, two different narratives of that, but in the Hebrew it changes that a little bit and it makes it seem kind of more like one. But anyways, um, and so right there in the beginning, the God created the sky and the land, but the land was hidden and unfurnished. Darkness covered its depth, and God's breath moved over its waters. Right there, you're going to say the God. Why the God? Well, they tell you why the God. This translation consistently translates ho theos in the Greek, and its variants such as ton theon as the God, not just God, but why, and it gives you why. And I mean, you can go ahead, pause it if you want to read that right there. But I encourage you to look this up yourself. It's awesome, and it's basically because in the Greek language, the God is put not just God alone, but the God, and they in a lot of English translations, they choose to not go with the God because of tradition, and it's just God, but it's technically the God or the gods. That's another way that you can translate this. That's actually more faithful. Is the gods created the sky and the land. But anyways, like I said, you can keep going into this. I mean, it's a really great resource. Let me try to find something else. I mean, let's go to Daniel Old Greek. Like I said, this is an awesome one. It tells you all about the book of Daniel, and specifically the differences between the Greek version and the other versions. The ones in the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and they showed us another glimpse of what Daniel looked like, the traditions behind Daniel. Really good, really good. I mean, I'm telling you guys, this was really helpful for me. This was so revolutionary. I mean, it wasn't just this alone. Definitely go and find more of the Greek-focused manuscripts. Go into the actual language. Do more of that research of context and history. And I mean, it just blows your mind. And this really puts it all together really well. And it even gives you texts like First Enoch, Maccabees, the Didache. I mean, it has so many resources. I mean, let's go to John, one of my favorites, everyone's favorites, if not my favorite gospel. Um, and it tells you this that it's a historical story of Jesus' life. It tells you that we get John from the Greek and the Aramaic sources. They think that John was originally written in Aramaic and then translated into Greek. That's another interesting fact about that. So we get in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with the God. Remember, Tontion, and a God was the Word. So you see it's rendering it differently. Another way this could be rendered is the logos. I mean, and if you want to learn more, I mean, go ahead, click on it. Who or what is the word? I'm telling you guys, endless. Look at that, endless resources. So I highly recommend this. I'm not going to keep talking because I can keep going, but I highly recommend this. I hope you guys can find this, dig into it, and really enhance your reading of scripture and understand that, like, I mean, there's just so much to learn and so many resources, and just going back historically, reading this thing through a historical lens really just blows your mind, and it just adds more impact on the prophecies and everything that was spoken of, that Jesus spoke, and it just adds such a layer of power to his coming, and just to the truth of him. But anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me in this. I hope you can join me next time. If you like this type of content, please like, share, subscribe, whatever you can do to help this channel grow. Join me. Let's continue studying the word and diving into the truth of Jesus. Thank you, guys.